On a hot, dusty stretch of highway, two bikers found themselves on opposite sides of a fate that would forever change their lives. It was a typical morning when the white rider sped past the open roads, his engine roaring as he zoomed through the clear sky. A lone figure on a black motorcycle, free and untethered, his mind lost in the hum of the engine, the wind against his face. But what he didn't know was that his journey would soon intersect with the life of a black biker, a man whose world was about to collide with a harsh, cold reality of rejection. Picture this. You're on the road, tired, frustrated, running low on gas, or maybe your bike's been giving you trouble. It's the kind of moment where anyone would appreciate a helping hand. And yet, what happened next was nothing short of a chilling reminder of how cruel some can be when it comes to simple acts of kindness. The black biker, desperate for help, found himself on the edge of the road, stranded and facing a long wait for someone, anyone, to pass by and offer a hand. He noticed the white rider from a distance, his bike speeding towards him in the rearview mirror. Hope ignited a chance at help. But when the white rider slowed down, the moment that followed was far from what the black biker had expected. With a glance, and without saying a word, the white rider simply looked away, revved his engine one last time, and sped off into the distance, leaving the stranded biker behind without a second thought. The feeling of abandonment lingered in the air, the sting of rejection sharper than any of the roads they had both ridden down. The black biker stood there, alone, watching the dust settle, his hopes dashed. What had he done to deserve this? Why had the white rider refused to even stop and help him? Was it a matter of chance, or something deeper, something more insidious? The lack of kindness felt like a punch to the gut, leaving him with nothing but his own thoughts and the sound of his own heart pounding in his chest. And as he stood there, he couldn't shake the feeling that something more than just a refusal of help was at play here. The rejection felt heavy, weighted with layers of history that extended far beyond this single encounter. But fate, as it always does, had a way of twisting things. As the black biker struggled with his emotions, a feeling of injustice brewing deep inside. Something unimaginable was quietly brewing just a few miles down the road. You see, sometimes life has a way of balancing the scales in ways we could never predict. And for the white rider, the seemingly innocent decision to leave a fellow biker stranded was about to come back in a way he could never have seen coming. The road ahead held a truth that would soon emerge. The white rider had made a mistake, and the universe, in all its mysterious ways, was going to make sure he knew it. Little did he know that his own fate was about to change in a way that would challenge everything he believed about kindness, justice, and the very nature of right and wrong. It wasn't long before the white rider found himself on the receiving end of a twist of fate, a consequence that would leave him stunned and speechless. Karma, in all its unpredictable glory, was making its presence known. And the white rider was about to learn a lesson that would stay with him for the rest of his life. But just how far would this turn of events go? What would happen when the scales of justice began to tip in unexpected ways? As the black biker stood by his motorcycle, the engine still silent, he could have never predicted the ripple effect his situation would create. And now the white rider, high on the open road just moments before, was about to feel the weight of his own decisions in ways that would leave him questioning everything he thought he knew about fate. The story was far from over, and the questions only continued to build. What would the white rider do when he realized the cost of his refusal? Would he regret turning his back on someone in need? Or was this something even bigger at play, something that would change them both forever? The next turn of events would determine whether redemption was possible, and whether karma's reach could truly change a life. But that's a story for another time. Stay tuned. The sun was starting to dip below the horizon, casting an orange glow over the road. But it wasn't the beauty of the scene that occupied the minds of the two bikers. Both of them were thinking about something much deeper, something darker. The road, with its endless twists and turns, held not just the promise of adventure, but also the weight of history. A history that had been written in silent moments and loud gestures, in the things people said and the things they didn't. For the black biker, the ride had always been about freedom. The rumble of his bike beneath him, the air that whipped past him as he sped along the highway, these were his moments of solace, his moments of belonging. He had grown up knowing the sting of rejection, feeling like an outsider in places where he should have felt at home. But on the bike, it was different. There were no boundaries, no limits. It was just him, the road, and the horizon that never seemed to end. The black leather jacket he wore, the dark helmet that shielded his face, became his armor against the world. But this time, something was different. Something felt wrong. The rejection, so cold and sudden, had cut deeper than he'd ever expected. He stood there, by the side of the road, his bike still silent, the hum of the engine a distant memory. What bothered him wasn't just that the white rider had refused to help. He could live with that. What stung was the way the man had looked at him. There was something in his eyes, something more than indifference. It was as if, for that brief moment, he saw him not as a fellow biker, but as something else entirely, something beneath him. It wasn't just the refusal to help. It was the feeling of being dehumanized, of being reduced to nothing more than a problem to avoid. The black biker's hands clenched into fists, his knuckles white as he struggled to keep calm. He had been here before, in situations where he had been judged unfairly, judged solely on the color of his skin, on assumptions made without a second thought. But this time, this rejection felt personal. He knew he couldn't let it slide. Something inside him had snapped. He wasn't sure what he expected from the white rider. Perhaps an apology, perhaps an explanation, but it didn't matter now. What mattered was that the white rider had crossed a line, and he would have to pay the price for it. Meanwhile, the white rider sped down the road, unaware of the storm that was brewing in the heart of the black biker. He had a long ride ahead of him, the miles stretching out endlessly before him. The wind tugged at his jacket as he leaned into the curves of the road, enjoying the rush, the freedom. He had never been one to stop for others. In his mind, the road was a personal journey. People who got stuck on the side of the road were just part of the risk that came with the territory. He was used to riding alone, and that suited him just fine. But there was something unsettling about the way the black biker had looked at him, something that didn't sit right in his gut. The brief moment of eye contact had lingered longer than he'd expected, and he had driven off feeling a strange mixture of relief and unease. It was like he had avoided something he didn't want to confront. He didn't like thinking about why he hadn't helped. He didn't like the thought that maybe it was more than just not wanting to get involved. Maybe, just maybe, it was something deeper, something rooted in the judgments he had grown up with, things he had never really questioned. The white rider was a product of his upbringing, shaped by the small town he had lived in, where people were quick to make assumptions, quick to judge based on appearances. He wasn't a bad person, or so he liked to believe. But in that split second, when he saw the black biker on the side of the road, something in him hesitated. His mind whispered that it wasn't his problem, that he didn't owe anyone anything, especially someone he didn't know. But that wasn't the full story. There was something else there, something he hadn't fully realized until now. As the miles stretched on, he couldn't shake the nagging feeling that he had missed something important. The tension between the two men was about to reach its boiling point, though neither of them knew it yet. The black biker, his emotions swirling, couldn't let go of the injustice he had felt. His mind raced, imagining all the possible ways the white rider would get what was coming to him. It was the kind of feeling that had always lurked in the back of his mind. The feeling that the world would one day come full circle, that the people who had hurt him, the ones who had looked past him, would one day have to face their actions. The idea of karma had always been comforting, like a promise that life wouldn't let people get away with their wrongdoings forever. But what he didn't realize was that karma was already at work, weaving its way through the universe, setting events in motion that neither of them could control. The White Rider, caught in his own web of pride and denial, was oblivious to the fact that his actions, his refusal to help, had already set the stage for his own reckoning. Fate, with its twisted sense of irony, had its own plans. The black biker's mind was a storm of anger and frustration, but as he finally managed to start his engine and pull back onto the road, something in him shifted. It wasn't just about revenge anymore. It wasn't just about punishing the White Rider for his rejection. No, this was bigger than that. This was about something more profound, something that spoke to the core of who they both were. And in that moment, he realized that his road ahead was not just about finding a way to deal with the White Rider. It was about understanding the deeper forces at play, the invisible threads that connected their fates. Meanwhile, the White Rider's fate was sealed with every mile that passed beneath him. He was unaware of how close he was to a crossroads, how the universe was drawing him into a moment that would change everything. The final stretch of road loomed ahead, the horizon slowly fading into night, and with it, the inevitable confrontation that neither man could avoid. As the distance between them grew smaller, the tension in the air grew thicker, the world seeming to hold its breath. They were headed towards something neither of them could see, a place where choices and consequences would collide in a way neither could have predicted. What would happen when their paths crossed again? Would the White Rider face the reckoning he so desperately tried to avoid, or would the black biker's journey end in another cruel twist of fate? The answers were waiting, and as the night drew near, the road stretched ahead, promising that the truth would soon be revealed. As the night crept in, the last remnants of daylight fading into the deep blues and purples of twilight, the road ahead seemed to stretch endlessly. Both bikers were heading toward a collision of fate, unaware that the moment of reckoning was approaching faster than either of them could imagine. Their paths were drawing closer, each mile more intense than the last, the tension thickening the air between them. It was inevitable now. Their choices were leading them to this point, and nothing could stop it. The black biker had been riding for hours, his mind consumed by thoughts of the White Rider and the rejection he had faced. He had played out countless scenarios in his head, imagining what he would say when they crossed paths again. He wanted answers, wanted the White Rider to feel the sting of his own indifference. But as he approached a sharp bend in the road, a sudden realization hit him. This wasn't just about getting even, it was about something deeper. It was about breaking the cycle of hatred and misunderstanding, something he had learned over the years, though it had never been easy. The world wasn't black and white, and maybe the White Rider wasn't the enemy after all. Perhaps, just like him, the White Rider was a product of his own experiences, shaped by his own life and struggles. But the question remained, would he see it that way? Just as the black biker's thoughts began to settle, a flash of headlights cut through the darkness. The White Rider's bike appeared in the distance, moving fast, a lone figure speeding through the night. His mind was clouded, too, still haunted by the brief encounter earlier that day. He couldn't shake the feeling that he had missed something, but there was more to the black biker's situation than he had realized. But the longer he rode, the more determined he became to put it out of his mind. He had made his choice, and he wasn't looking back. Or at least that's what he tried to tell himself. But fate had other plans. As the White Rider came around the curve, his heart raced, his grip tightening on the handlebars. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a deer darted across the road, too fast for him to avoid. The white rider swerved, desperately trying to regain control, but the bike slipped out from under him, sending him tumbling onto the hard asphalt. His body collided with the ground with a sickening thud, and for a moment, everything went silent. The black biker saw it all happen in an instant. His instincts kicked in, and before he could think, he had already pulled over to the side of the road. He was off his bike in a flash, rushing toward the fallen rider. His heart pounded as he knelt beside the white rider, who was groaning in pain. His helmet cracked and his leg twisted at an unnatural angle. In that moment, all the anger, all the bitterness he had felt just hours before seemed to dissolve. The only thing that mattered now was the man in front of him, struggling to breathe, struggling to move. The black biker didn't hesitate. He tore off his own jacket, propping the white rider up to stabilize his neck and keep him from further harm. As he worked quickly, his mind flashed back to the rejection, to the moment the white rider had passed him by. But now, none of that mattered. What mattered was the fact that they were both here, on this road, at this moment in time, and it was his turn to help. The white rider's eyes fluttered open, a dazed look on his face as he realized who was standing over him. The black biker was the last person he had expected to see. For a moment, confusion clouded his thoughts, but then he saw the genuine concern in the black biker's eyes. The realization hit him like a ton of bricks. He had made a mistake, a big one, not just with his refusal to stop earlier, but with the way he had thought about people like the black biker. He had seen him through a lens of prejudice without ever taking a moment to consider the truth. "Are you okay?" the black biker asked, his voice steady but tinged with urgency. The white rider nodded weakly. I'm fine. Just shaken up a bit. I didn't think I'd end up here. I didn't think I'd be helping you either," the black biker said, a small, almost reluctant chuckle escaping him. He carefully adjusted the white rider's position, checking for injuries. "But here we are." They both fell silent for a moment, the weight of everything that had happened hanging in the air between them. The white rider looked at the black biker, his face filled with regret. "I'm sorry for earlier. I didn't know what I was thinking. I should have stopped. I should have helped." The black biker looked at him, his expression softening. "We all make mistakes, but you don't have to keep making them. Just think next time." For the first time since their paths had crossed, the two men shared an understanding. They were two people from different worlds, different backgrounds, but in that moment, they were united by something much more powerful than their differences. They were human, both capable of growth, both capable of change. The black biker helped the white rider to his feet, supporting him as they slowly made their way toward their bikes. The night felt different now. The tension had melted away, replaced by a quiet sense of resolve. As they prepared to part ways once more, the white rider looked at the black biker, grateful but uncertain. "Where do we go from here?" the white rider asked, his voice small but sincere. The black biker gave him a knowing smile. "The road's long. There's a lot to learn, but we all have to start somewhere." With that, the two bikers rode off into the night, their paths forever intertwined by the events of that day. Neither of them would ever forget the lesson they had learned, not just about karma or fate, but about the power of second chances, the importance of empathy, and the undeniable truth that sometimes helping someone is the only way to heal your own wounds. The road was still ahead of them, but now it didn't feel quite so lonely. They rode with a renewed sense of purpose, knowing that no matter where life took them, they would always be able to look back on this moment as a turning point, the moment when they learned that the road to redemption isn't just about one person's journey. It's about the connections we make, the choices we make, and the impact we have on each other, whether we realize it or not. And as they disappeared into the horizon, the night seemed a little less dark.